Hey everyone, this is Professor Barlow. I had a question from a student about the homework in section 4.1. As you can see, I'm on problem number 8 in the homework. It's problem 8 of 14, and there was a question about the graphing and how I would want to graph this. And so this is a multi-level question. I've got f of x equals 6 to the x. I need to graph it, give the equation, the asymptotes, and use the graphs to determine the domain and the range. So basically what they're doing is they're going back to section 2.5 where we learned about transformations. Now, the only transformation that I see going on with this particular guy is that the original was f of x equals 6 to the x, and they want me to graph g of x equals negative 6 to the x. If I have a negative on the outside of the function, that is actually going to give me a reflect about the x-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that and check my answer. All right, now comes the hard part. Now's the part where they want me to actually graph the function. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. I don't see very well, so if I click this zoom in, that actually doesn't help me much. But here at the bottom, if you see this pop out, much nicer graph and much bigger. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can graph the function first, or you can go ahead and do the asymptote first. It doesn't make any difference. I am graphing an exponential function, so the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and grab the exponential tool. Now, initially, it doesn't make any difference where I click on this screen. It's going to graph an exponential function. But this window down here pops up, and now I actually, is this guy vertical stretching? Is he vertical or horizontal stretching or shrinking? Is he vertical shifting, horizontal shift? But look down here where it says reflect over the x-axis, reflect over the y. Now the base of the function is 6, so I'm going to leave that alone. This particular function, g of x equals negative 6 to the x, doesn't have a vertical or horizontal shift, but I am going to come in here and I am going to check this box, reflect over the x-axis, and notice how the graph did change. All right, once I do that, then I need to graph the asymptote. Now for this particular guy, the asymptote is the line y equals 0, or in other words, it is the x-axis. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab the line tool, and I need to graph that horizontal line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the line is going to be dashed because it's an asymptote. Asymptotes are always dashed. You can choose to land any 2 points along the x-axis and it will graph the asymptote. I'm going to click save and I'm going to check to see if it's okay. Sure enough, that's okay. And then you can go on to answer the rest of the question. They want to know what the equation for that asymptote actually is. And notice in the blue that says type an equation. So they're wanting y equals 0. So we'll type that in. I'm going to check my answer. Then they asked me the domain. The domain of all exponential functions is going to be negative infinity to infinity, or all real numbers written in interval notation. So close that out, check my answer. It's going to ask me for the range. So the range is kind of interesting. The range is actually what's happening along the y-axis. So the range in this case is everything below y equals 0. Now remember, when we write our intervals, we write them from left to right. So I am coming in from negative infinity, comma, 0. I'm using a soft-sided parenthesis on the 0 because y equals 0 is actually my asymptote. So I wouldn't use a bracket on 0 because that would include 0, and I'm not able to include 0 in this interval. So check that answer, and I'm ready to go to the next question. I think the hardest part is understanding how the pop-up box works, where you're shrinking or moving or you're vertically doing a vertical or a horizontal transformation. So use the little box, and that should help. So hopefully this video will help everybody out. Thanks.